Hello everyone. Today we're going to take a look at the Voluntex RC Ranger 757-4 FPV plane, and it's the smaller sibling to the Ranger EX that I reviewed on a previous video, and I'll put a link to that video here and in the video description. So to get this started, let's take 10 seconds and get everything out of the box. Before we get too deep into this video, I need to give a shout out to the folks at Banggood.com for sending me this plane for a review. Thank you very much for that, and I hope you won't be too mad at me if I start to nitpick at your plane a little bit. Unlike many of the models that we get these days, this one actually comes with a fairly useful manual that makes the easy job of assembling this plane even easier. So for under $100 US, you're getting a plug-and-play version of this plane, which means that it comes fully loaded except for your radio gear and a LiPo. So let's quickly take a run through the specs for this plane. She's got a 54.5-inch wingspan, which compares to the 79-inch wingspan of the Ranger EX, and she comes in at 37 inches in length. Already installed in the PNP version is a 2800 series 1400 kV outrunner with a 30 amp ESC. The recommended battery for this plane is a 3S1800, which is an awfully small and light battery for this plane, especially given the fact that it's designed to be quite tail heavy so that it can accommodate all of your FPV gear and a larger flight pack. As a matter of fact, Voluntex actually included a weight for you to put into the nose of the plane in the event that you did run a lighter flight pack. So to me, I'd rather go with a larger battery, get longer flight times, and have, useful weight instead of dead weight. So far I've noticed that most of the guys seem to be running a 4000 to a 5200 mAh 3-cell for their flight pack. They combine that with a full load of FPV gear and are able to get the CG correct without too much difficulty. So that will give you an idea of the designed tail heaviness of this plane and how it's really set up for FPV so that you can load up the front without having a real job getting your CG right. So to quickly wrap up the specifications, all it's left to talk about are the 4 9-gram servos that are installed in the plane. And you notice here that the rudder and elevator servos are as far aft as they can get. And again, this is to give you as much chance as possible to load the front end up while getting the CG right. And now let's talk about the fuse. Unlike its larger brother, the Ranger EX, which has got a fuse made out of PVC, the 757-4, the smaller plane, is all foam, much like you would expect it to be. It looks like they've taken the Ranger EX, scaled it down, and then created an exact scale replica out of foam. And from a distance it would be very hard to tell the two planes apart. The quality of the foam and the fit and the finish of the fuse itself is really quite good, although I'm not going to be able to say that about the control surfaces, but we'll talk more about that later. So let's just take a look at a few of the design features of the fuselage. Just like the larger version, this Ranger has a molded-in platform for your video transmitter. It's been given a little bit of extra downthrust to offset the pitching that took place when anything more than half throttle was used in the larger EX version. And from what I understand, it's still a little bit of a problem, but nothing that isn't easily overcome with a little bit of elevator input. They've added a handy little plywood shelf to put your flight controller or anything else that you want to put on it, and it extends down about 1/3 of the way through the depth of the fuse itself, so that you've still got plenty of room underneath this shelf to install other equipment. One of the disappointments with this model is that they didn't ship an FPV canopy to replace the stock one, like some of the kits do, that would allow you to easily mount your away from the front of the fuse around the camera port so that the foam doesn't appear in the video. Here you can see the cooling vents. There's one on each side of the fuse, and they're not just for decoration. They actually are functional and should help to move air through the fuse. There's also a cooling vent on the top of the wing and in front of the motor pod to move cooling air across the motor. So let's leave the fuse for now and take a look at the rest of the plane. I'm sorry to have to report that the hinges on this Ranger are just as bad as the ones on the larger Ranger EX. As a matter of fact, as you can see here, the rudder's pretty much falling off the vertical stab. Now fortunately this is easy to remedy, but it does take away from the overall perception of the plane. As we move to the horizontal stab, you can see that the hinges on the elevator look much better. I'll probably laminate the hinges just to be on the safe side, but they do look like they would probably be okay. Here you can see the plywood spar that they've used to stiffen up the stab. This is just a really small point, but it's one that you don't see very often on a foam plane, and that is the groove that they've molded into the foam to allow you to get your screwdriver in to access the servo. There's not much to say about the wings. They look fine. There's still some caution to be taken with respect to the hinges, and I think I will be laminating my hinges just to be safe. And as you can see here, they make use of a plywood spar to stiffen the wing surface up. Unlike the larger Ranger EX, this smaller version doesn't come with flaps. I suppose you could cut some in, but to be honest with you, I don't really think that it would be worth the effort on this plane. From what I've seen, it slows down just fine and lands like a dream. Something I haven't seen before on a plane this size, but the wing spar is actually made out of aluminum. It's kind of a heavy beast, but I know that it's not a performance plane where every gram counts, but still, I think I would have preferred to see a carbon fiber wing spar than one that's quite heavy and made out of aluminum. The landing gear is also made out of aluminum, and in this case, I guess it's not a bad choice. It seems fairly stiff, and I think if you weigh down the plane, it'll still be stiff enough to take care of a rough landing or two. The bag with all your hardware goodies is pretty much what you'd expect it to be, especially for a plane at this price point. I found that the quality of the screws and the wheels and tires and all of that were actually a notch above what you would normally expect for a $100 plane. So pleasantly surprised there, and the only thing that most people might be inclined to change would be the propeller, but I have been hearing that people are having some success with the stock propeller that comes with the plane, so I'll probably give it a try just to see. So if you're one of the 4 or 5 people that made it to the end of this video, congratulations, you've made it. I know I was starting to put myself to sleep there, and I apologize if I did the same for you. So in any event, I'm looking forward to getting this little plane in the air and giving it a try. And I'll rejoin you as soon as we can get the maiden in, which may or may not be in anytime soon, depending on how quickly we can get rid of this rain. So again, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Happy flying, and bye-bye for now.